Hey guys, this is Nefis here with yet another CP guide for Vet Cloudrest. The last couple of times we went over red and green CP layouts. We were in Vet Ethereum Archive first, and then we looked at what kind of CP you're expected to have in Vet Asylum Sanctorium. And today we're going to be going over pretty much every rule's red and green CP. This will also include two different strats the tanks have in Vet Cloudrest, so worry not. I'll be going over what the main tank CP is, or what the off tank CP is, or what your CP will be as an off tank that does not go down in the portal phase. So let's begin. And as always, if you don't want to watch the entire video with all the explanations, I do have links down in the description below to very simple graphics to show you what kind of CP you'd want as a certain role. So again, this will be going over the main tank CP, regardless of whether you are exchanging on Zamaja as one of the two main tanks, or just solo main tanking Zamaja for the entire duration of the trial fight, whether it's +1, +2, or +3 hard mode. For the blue tree, it's pretty simple as a main tank. I'll be just briefly be going over this because it's pretty simple. It's just mainly heal-based CP along with the last stand CP perk. And that's pretty much it. For the red tree, the steed, we're going to have 81 into Ironclad. There's a lot of direct damage in here, including Zamaja's heavy attack, and the 24% damage reduction from these direct attacks really help a lot. Spell shield, you don't really need anything. You'll be near spell resistance cap as a tank, and you don't need to be at spell resistance cap as a tank in this trial, or honestly pretty much any other trial, so we're going to ignore that. For the lady tree, we have 75 Ellie and we have 61 thick-skinned. The 75 Ellie is going to be for pretty much most of the damage in this trial is magic-based damage. So you're not really gonna have any hardy based damage done to you as a main tank. You're not gonna be taking any minis, and even if you did take minis as a tank, occasionally having 0% hardy is fine. 61 thick-skin helps a lot with going into the shallow realm downstairs if you are one of the two main tanks changing on Zamaja. And this 21% damage reduction will help a lot with not just going down bottom, it also helps during execute when you have the dot damage on you from Zamaja's beam attacks. It's a very good CP to have in this trial as a main tank. And we got the 43 quick recovery, and giving us 10% additional healing received. As a Dragon Knight, this is insanely powerful, stacking with your DK passives for more healing received. You don't really need any Bastion, you don't really need any of this obviously. So this is what you're going to have as your red CP for your main tank, regardless of which strat you're going to use. For the green tree, it's going to be also kind of straightforward. It's honestly, this is a CP layout that allows room for mistakes, such as getting hit by cascades from Reliquin while you're tanking Zamaja. So we're going to have about 20% break-free cost reduction. You can have slightly less or slightly more, it doesn't really matter. It's your preference. We're going to have 10% cost reduction into sprinting. You do quite a lot of sprinting in here as a main tank. And you're going to have 25 points into bashing focus for a 15% bash cost reduction. If you are going to run one block cost reduction, you can probably lower this a bit. And this is again the lever, as I've said in the previous videos for VAA and Asylum Sanctorium, sort of preference. I mean, it's dependent on your build. I honestly think for a main tank, you don't need any magical recovery build at all. Unless you are one of the two main tanks or an off tank going downstairs or staying up. I think magical recovery builds are pretty powerful in here. I would say it's even better than the meditate build I came up with. So this is preference, and obviously I will have 43 into tenacity as a tank, or even 8 or 9% should be fine. And of course this is again preference or dependent on your build stats or your block cost stats already. And we're going to have 81 points in the Shadow Ward for 24% block cost reduction and 37 points into dodge roll cost reduction. And this is the CP I pretty much used for Griffinheart on both the off tank and main tank positions. So honestly, as long as you're within these parameters, you should be fine. And now we'll move on to the healer CP. Alright, and for the healer CP for kiting or group healing, this will pretty much be your red CP. You got 61 Ironclad, and it's a lot lower than tanks because you're not really going to be taking much direct damage from minis or Zamaja, or rather you shouldn't be. So the only direct damage you're going to contend with here is going to be potentially from minis, potentially from walking into an orb for whatever reason or something like that. But honestly, you shouldn't be getting too much direct damage as a healer, and we're just going to keep it at 61 for 21% damage cost reduction. 49 spell shield, as you do need a bit more resistance. You're not really tanky or anything. If you are a group healer and you're going to use Eben, you'll probably have like 2 piece heavy on body, and this will help out a little bit with your resistances. And you'll have Eben on the jewelry as well, so you already have a bit more health. So honestly, this is going to roughly be the resistances you want. You can go lower, you can go higher. I wouldn't really recommend higher, probably lower. For the lady trait, we got 56 thick skin for the 20% damage reduction on dots. So there's going to be a lot of dots, and everyone's going to handle dots. The DPS, whether you're a DPS or a tank or a healer, you're going to be dealing with a lot of dots, as particularly dark drain from orbs. So we want this much into thick skin. Zero hardy, again, you're not going to be dealing with any mini heavy attacks as a healer, or rather you shouldn't. And if you do get aggro from the minis, heavies, you just gotta dodge roll. You can't just stand there and block it anyway. And we got the 75 LE for the magic damage cost reduction. Not cost reduction, magic damage reduction from the trial's incoming damage. And we got basic 19 points into the quick recovery. Healing received helps a lot, even for healers here. And obviously within these parameters you can kind of tweak things around, see what works best for you as a healer. But yeah, this is pretty much what I would use as a healer in as a group healer or a KITE healer. KITE healer, if you're having trouble with ice, picking up hoarfrost, and dealing with crushing darkness, you can also run a bit more Dixon if you'd like 21-22%. And for the green tree, whether you're the KITE healer or the group healer, it's gonna be mostly the same. So the main issues for a DPS or a healer in terms of sustain, besides your magic recovery, which is the most obvious one, is going to be break free, sprint cost, and dodge roll cost reduction. So the creepers, when they spawn, they may target you, so you can't really count on RNG to save you every time. And creepers, if they are going down slowly, a lot of healers struggles or problems with dodge rolling 3 times in a row for the creeper vines, so I would highly suggest 19 to 20% dodge roll cost reduction as a healer, 56 in the tumbling. And you can block dark drain from taking effect on your character, so block cost reduction is nice. If you need to block the incoming dark drain from orbs or the ice meteors from Gallonway, you got 45 tenacity, you can go higher. This is obviously based on your build and preference. Most healers do run 64 to 75 in the Arcanist, but for this trial I would kind of take away the points from these traditional 2 CP points and put them elsewhere into like Warlord, like 20% break free cost reduction. If you get cascaded as a group healer and you have dark drain on you and everything, all these crazy things are going on, you need to be able to break free, like no matter what. If you can't break free and you die, it's a huge stress on the group if you die as a healer. It doesn't matter if you're a KITE healer or a group healer that dies, you need to be able to break free and save yourself. So I highly recommend 56 in the Warlord. 8 Sprinter, a basic 5% cost reduction for sprinting. It helps a lot since the fight is so mobile. The bashing focus, you don't need to bash anything as a healer, or rather you shouldn't. Occasionally you may need to bash Reliquin when he ports around if you're the KITE healer and he ports to you and he immediately channels, but that's about it. There's nothing else to bash. And that's pretty much it for the healer. Let's move on to the DPS. For the DPS CP, even if you are Stamina or Magicka, doesn't really matter. It's gonna be almost the same as a healer's red CP. So we're going to have the 61 Ironclad. Obviously you shouldn't be taking much direct damage, besides from the mechanics, from minis or Zamaja. So you're going to have 61 Ironclad, very basic. 39 in Spell Shield for more mitigation from the magic damage present in the trial. And we got 66 Thick Skin, that's slightly higher than the healer, but that's because healers don't go down bottom. As a DPS, even if you are assigned to top group and not a bottom group team, you might need to be a backup and go down bottom, and Thick Skin helps quite a bit down bottom when you pick up the orbs. 75 LE is, again, basic. You're going to want the 14% damage reduction against the incoming magic damage in the trial, 0 hardy, 0 light armor focus, since there's no physical damage present, or if there is, it shouldn't be on you. Quick recovery, kind of the same for the standard 5% healing received. It's just whatever, you can have none, you can have a 5%, 3%, 4%, doesn't really matter, but it is not quite nice to have as a DPS. For DPS, again, you're not going to be bashing anything. You'll still be sprinting. You'll still be expected to break free and shield. You got the basic 64 into Arcanist. You can put a bit more into Tenacity if you'd like, but honestly, with the orbs and such dying, it's even easy for a Mag Sork to sustain themselves. So there's no real need if you are on a Mag Blade or something like that. In Murkmire patch or this patch, to have much into Tenacity, you're not really gonna be heavy attacking a lot. 56 tumbling for the dodge roll cost reduction. Again, you are going to be targeted by the same mechanics as healers are, so the vines from the creepers will fuck you if you cannot dodge them. And we got the basic 13% block cost reduction. And that's pretty much it for DPS CP. Very straightforward, very similar to Asylum, Sanctorium CP, and AA CP, but that's because a lot of damage in these trials are pretty similar. Lastly, for the off-tank CP, whether you are an off-tank going down or not, what I mean by that is some groups have strats where 2 off-tanks exchange on minis and go down into the portal phase, or there's 1 off-tank staying up all the time while 2 main tanks exchange on Zamaja, as I mentioned earlier. So this CP will mostly be for the off-tanks that do go down and exchange on minis. You have 81 Ironclad, you'll have 61 Thick Skin for reasons mentioned before. We're going to have 7 to 9% damage reduction on physical damage, as the minis heavy attacks do hurt, but regardless of how much hardy you have, it'll probably still one-shot you if you have around the 40k max health range. So even if you have 5% hardy or 9% hardy, you gotta block the heavy attacks, but the blocking the heavy attacks with this mitigation CP helps quite a bit for the healers, so that's nice to have. And this will pretty much kind of be similar to how a consistent off-tank will be running their red CP if they're staying up while 2 main tanks exchange on Zamaja, so this is going to be the same red CP. Elemental Defender, you're still going to have quite a lot of it. I would suggest 12% damage cost reduction on the magic damage in the trial. I mean, I keep saying damage cost reduction, that's pretty cute. So the quick recovery, 25 points into it. You can go a little lower, you can go a little less, and put it more towards whichever of these CP trees right here. For green, you're going to have 51 to Warlord, you're still going to be expected to break free, and from the Cascades and so on. You're going to have 13 Sprinter, fights very mobile and fast paced, and you have to stack monstrosities and minis on the main boss, Maja, so this is quite helpful. And you're going to have 64 into Arcanist. So it is my opinion that as an off-tank exchanging on minis and going down, I think higher magic recovery is going to be the winner than using meditate and so on, because this frees up a slot for you. And also the sustain is pretty crazy good in Cloudrest for chaining and adds and pretty much handling the trial mechanics while doing all this. It's quite nice. So if you're not used to things like meditate or certain other skills, you'll probably want to run a very high mag regen build. I would say somewhere between 1400 to 1800 base magic recovery is pretty good. And tenacity, again, preference, whether how many points you want into it. And of course 81 we discussed into block cost reduction, depends on if you have the 1 block cost reduction jewelry on a jewelry piece or so on, or how many sturdy traits you have. And we got 51 into tumbling, just for the creepers, dodging the monstrosities, baneful marks. So that's pretty much it. That is pretty much every role's CP layout. And again, you guys are restricted to this, but I do highly recommend doing the same numbers as me in certain perks like Ironclad for the tanks and so on. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. And as always, have a great adventure.